Good morning, folks. This is Eddie here, and this is going to be episode 1 of Catholic Re.Con. And we're going to be focusing on testimonies from reverts and converts. And my first guest is very special. This is Josh Dickson here.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Had to get my coffee. I know Eddie doesn't drink coffee. So anyone who does this next, no, Eddie doesn't drink coffee. Good way.
Good way to start it.
Way
and we started Exodus 90 this morning, so I had to check and make sure that he didn't add any creamer or sugar to his coffee. Anyway, I met Josh about a year ago, and he started sharing his story with me. I shared my story with him, and he said, as we left, I need more crazy reverts in my life. And I'd never heard that. I was, at that point, I had returned to the faith maybe 5 months earlier or something. And anyway, that stuck with me. And since then, we've become good friends. And so I wanted him to come on and be able to share his reversion story, because I think it's highly important. There are many people that are coming back to the faith. They're sharing their stories maybe in isolation or in a small group, but I just want to do my best to kind of get these stories out onto YouTube. So with that, Josh, welcome.
Hey, so good to see you this morning, Eddie. Like, first day of Exodus 90, I was a little nervous. The cold shower was rough.
Same here. Same here.
I realized I hadn't had any coffee, so I had to stop by and grab some coffee on the way. I love it how you started off with talking about my ending comment to you was I need more crazy reverts in my life. And that's true, because I was raised Catholic, cradle Catholic. My family, I was baptized as an infant. We went to church every Sunday. I found out relatively early, maybe in mid elementary school, that my mom hated to be late for church. So me and my brother hated going to church. So what we would do is we would get out of bed super slow, try and delay the family, so that if we were past, we always went to mass at 9 a.m. And if we rolled into the parking lot at 9:01, 9:02, my mom would just be like, "Oh, sorry, we're late, so we can't go." So that was our goal, was to delay the family. So I'm just kind of giving you guys a snapshot into how I thought of faith when I was younger. I didn't really think that God was important. It was something we did on Sundays. But there was nothing behind it. I mean, I remember reading at my first communion. That was kind of cool, but it was more of making my parents proud. It wasn't being there for God or receiving communion, body, blood, soul, and divinity,
sure,
I believe now.
Same here.
So that was one thing that me and my brother used to do. The other thing is that we would just find ways to needle our parents about their faith, about how crap it is, and I don't know why that they need it and stuff like that. So, one of the people that actually impacted me the most, now that I think about it later, which it actually this interaction angered me. My brother and we always went to CCD or youth group or whatever, yeah. Right? Never really could remember learning much. I think it was pretty much because we were checked out. We weren't engaged at all. But my brother and I had gone to mass. I was 16 or 17 years old. My brother was a senior in high school at the time. And the youth minister came up to us and said that he hadn't seen us at confession. And so since we just received communion, we were on the path to hell, basically. Wow. And that pissed me off. And so me and my brother went home and we told our parents, "You're a bunch of hypocrites. The people you go to church with are hypocrites. And we're done." And my parents...
How old were you at that time?
16 or 17 years old. Yeah. So my parents, they knew a little bit about their faith, but they weren't sold. So they were yeah, that doesn't why would someone say that to you? What I know is that, yes, the devil divides, but also truth divides. Mm-hmm. Truth is a sword. It's going to cut things in half. When someone had the courage to give me some truth, mm-hmm. that I probably didn't want to hear, I had one of two options, is to accept it or reject it. And I rejected it at that point in time. So that led me to a life of basically being agnostic. I grew up with some good friends. hard work ethic. I had a child out of wedlock when I was 19. Just tried to work as hard as I could to provide the best life for my daughter. The secular world of all I had to do was provide financially for her, do some fun things,
Yep.
basically. And then I just tried to become a millionaire, basically, because like that's all that I knew to do, right? So I knew how to get a good job. So I dropped out of college, went to work at Micron Technology, and that was actually an amazing company. They provided a lot of benefits, good pay, but it was also working night shift. So what do you do when you work night shift? You hang out with the people that you work with.
Yeah.
And then that leads to the lifestyle of just going out, drinking and partying and just doing the things of the world that sound fun and are fun at the time, but then lead you into a deep place of despair. Like they just leave you empty. Yeah, they're fun in the moment, but then when you wake up the next day, it's like, what did I do? Oh, I'm never doing that again. And then 2 weeks later, you're doing it again.
Yep.
Right.
Your lack of coping skills continues. It's not as if it's just going to magically disappear overnight.
For sure.
Yeah.
So one of the blessings my mom did is she always said, Josh, you're never going to find a nice girl at the bar. Why don't you try eHarmony? And I was like, whatever. Which I don't know if eHarmony is still around, but that was the one of the online dating. I don't even want to say application because we didn't have apps. It's online dating.
Yeah,
website.
I just remember the ad
Right.
that gentleman would come on screen. And
Yeah.
I've matched millions of people.
So I actually met my wife on there.
Okay.
The only woman that I ever met from there. We went on our first date, and we actually went to Cheesecake Factory. Then we went to the Red Eye, which is a bar in Cuna, which is like total opposites of like you started the cheesecake and then you end at the Red Eye. But that was kind of like now that I think about it, that was kind of like how I was raised. Like I was baptized into this beautiful faith.
Sure.
Right? This amazing restaurant, and then I choose like the dive bar and the crap afterward, you know.
So Catholicism is the Cheesecake Factory?
Compared, okay. Yeah. Definitely compared to...
A lot of options, a lot of depth.
Lot of, yeah. Not cheap.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Because it is, I mean, this faith is tough. Like, if anyone says that it's not, I don't know what they're doing. Because the faith is tough, but it's rewarding. It's so fulfilling, and I'll definitely get to that eventually. So I meet my wife. We start dating. About 2 years later, she was talking about wanting to get married, and me being the what's it called? The standard male of my age.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want commitment. You know, I don't want to get married. I want to be single. I want to, well, maybe like with a girlfriend, but I mean, I want us both to have an income and to do all the things that the world says you have to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't think marriage offered that. But what I told her is I said, as long as it doesn't break us financially, I'll marry you, which is a sad way to like be all right with getting married.
Yeah.
Right. So, my wife is very thrifty, and she figured out a way to get married without spending too much money. This is like when faith really starts to entwine paths with me and my wife and my family. So we're preparing to get married. We're going to get married in Twin Falls, I believe, at like some Baptist church in Twin Falls, because that's where my wife, I think her dad went to church there or something.
Okay.
There's some family connection. So we start planning the wedding, and my mother-in-law calls my wife, and she had received a phone call from her best friend, who her husband's a deacon. Okay. So crazy, like it's one of like my first cousin's best friends, whatever, right? So there's this long connection of how this information came to my mother-in-law.
Got it.
Long story short is, I was a baptized Catholic, and if I didn't get married in the Catholic Church, my wedding wouldn't be recognized. Now, like I said, I was not like practicing, nothing about my faith at the time did I believe mattered. But when my wife told me that it wouldn't be recognized, that like bothered me. And I asked her, I go, well, do you care if we get married in the church? And she said, no, not at all. So it was just like that. So it was just like that. Venue switches from the Baptist church to the Catholic church. Well, now there's all these hoops you got to jump through to like.
Of course.
You got to do
marriage prep,
marriage encounter. So we went to the retreat and all the classes, which are actually they're so good. Like they're amazing. The Catholic Church has a purpose for why they want you to go through these classes to prepare you for marriage. It is they definitely ask questions that neither one of us had thought about, such as how many children do you want to have?
Yeah,
you know,
pretty
what's your financial like?
Yeah.
Who's gonna handle the bills? Are you both? Is one or the like? So there's a lot of good information in there. So we go through all the marriage prep classes. We're gonna get married in the Twin Falls Catholic Church only because my wife doesn't want a ton of people at her wedding, so that's why she didn't want to get married in Boise.
Wow.
Right. So we go to the Catholic Church down there, and we're going through like the book selection because I mean when you get married in the church you can't go like the bride can't walk down the aisle to Here Comes the Bride.
Yeah.
Because that's not like if anyone knows the history of that song, you wouldn't want your wife walking down the aisle.
I don't know the history.
Well, that
is it too long?
It can be like it's just inappropriate. Like it's definitely not very. There's not a lot of dignity to the wife when it comes to the song. Yeah. So because I think it's I don't know if it's a play or what, but it's like it's just not a good situation for the bride.
Got it.
So
and yet that somehow becomes tradition,
right?
And you accept it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just it's so crazy. Anyway, so we get down to Twin, and my wife has this Catholic book where it's like, oh, you can pick all these things, right?
Yeah.
So we get there, and the priest is like, oh, you can put the book away. I'm gonna pick everything. And my wife had already like compromised on a bunch of stuff, so she starts crying like, we can't get married. Like we can't get married in the church. All these things are so wrong. So and this is like 2 or 3 weeks before the wedding.
Wow. So
this is like invitations have gone out, everything. So my parents go to church up here. They talk to actually Deacon Chuck Squirrel. He's passed away now, so God rest his soul. And he was such an amazing man. But he actually agreed to marry us at Our Lady of the Rosary, and this is like 2 weeks ahead of the day. Like the church happened to be open that way, and this is like we got married on Meredith's gonna kill me, May 10th,
19.
Oh man,
2000.
It might be April 10th actually.
2008.
Yeah, no, 2010.
That's what I thought.
2010. Yeah, 2000 because this year was our 10th anniversary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, April 10th. I believe. Sorry, Meredith. I'm terrible.
I'll make sure she doesn't
see
download.
So yeah, please block her profile from YouTube.
Yep.
No, she's expecting it. Probably that's terrible. That's something I hope Exodus 90 helps get all the toxins out of my brain and get some straight thinking. Oh man.
Yeah. Oh man.
So anyway, so we end up getting married. And it's amazing. Thanks to our wedding vows, now this is a crazy part. Thanks to our wedding vows, I wasn't living up to my wedding vows, but Meredith had promised to raise our kids Catholic. So she put herself through RCIA. I didn't help her. I showed up on Easter Vigil and watched her walk through. I didn't even buy her a baptism gift, nothing. Next year, after she goes through RCIA, she puts our kids into because neither one of our kids, because we're a blended family, so we have a mine and hers.
Yeah.
She put our kids through.
How old were they at that time?
They were like 10 and 11, maybe. Okay. 9 and 10. So she put them through that, like was taking them to mass while I was like sitting home watching football, drinking beer, or I was at work.
Yeah.
Right. So like that was where I was at. My parents, through all this time, they had become insane Catholics, I like to say. I mean, crazy Catholics is pretty fun, but I put them in the insane category because they just pray all the time, and it drives me crazy, or it drove me crazy. Whenever I'd call them and talk to them, they'd be like, "Oh, we're praying for you," and I was just like, "I don't care." So married with kids. I'm working at Micron still. And I worked myself into a position that is I'm making good money, high stress though, a lot of like brand new projects and stuff like that. And it put me in a really deep, state of depression or despair. Finances were tight. relationships weren't good, you know, because when you're not living right, it's just, I mean,
Trickles down to everything.
They're not big cuts. It's just like a bunch of little cuts every day, like playing too many video games. When I'd work like 60 or 70 hours a week, I'd just come home and I just want to check out. You know, I was tired. I was giving everything I had at work, and left nothing for my family at home. So getting in a deep dark place. I'd actually drive to work, and I lived in Kuna at the time. There's this back road that's like a windy back road. And every time I get on that back road, I just think like, I don't know if I want to die, but maybe if I like wrecked my car and checked out in the hospital for a couple weeks,
get a morphine drip.
Morphine drip, for sure. Just to like take a break.
Yeah.
And I would even contemplate like, do I wear my seatbelt? How fast do you go? Stuff like that. So it was like I was getting pretty serious, and I finally decided, I'm going to do this thing. So on Friday, I decided that I'd do it Monday morning. Mondays were the worst. Like Fridays were amazing. Mondays, just because I was going 5 days between now and the weekend. So, and it was just
a lot of people view it that way. Absolutely.
So I'm driving down the back road, and Ada County Highway District had come in and filled in the part where I was planning on doing something.
You gotta be kidding.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is so like this must be like.
It hit you immediately.
Well, just that. There is there's something at work is like what I thought. Nothing that like no faith light bulb or anything, but something had like was like, wow, like that's not random, you know. This is too obvious that I was about to do this, and this was filled in. And I don't know anybody from Ada County Highway District, you know, like I'm a very skeptical person, so. There was I had no reason to believe that maybe I made this deal subconsciously with myself that this would happen, and then there would, you know, it was just flat out just
that's incredible
coincidence, or whatever.
I didn't remember hearing that before.
I don't know if I've ever told anyone before.
So, well, this is the perfect thing.
So coming up shortly after that drive down there, my parents were inviting us to go to Deacon Harold Burke was invited to speak in Caldwell, and it was supposed to be a talk on marriage, and our marriage was like suffering badly, and so my wife really wanted to go. I didn't, so I was just kicking back on like I wasn't going to go that night. Yeah. Well, my parents just pull up to our house. I'm like, what? Why are my parents? You know, so they get out and they come up to the door. They're like, we're here to pick you guys up. And I was just like, I don't want to go. And they're just like, we're going. And I was just like, fine, whatever. So, threw on some clothes, drove out to Caldwell. And due to like scheduling, because you know how things work at like a conference, like sometimes they have to shift talks around. So instead of it being about marriage, right, it was Deacon Harold Burke's talk about men and how like terrible men are today, basically, and like how we're so weak and feeble. And we're not really protecting our families, even though we believe that we are. And dude, everything he said was just like piercing my soul and my heart. And it was just like, I felt like, and he's so loud. Like, I don't know if you've ever, like,
I haven't heard him yet.
In person, like on TV is one thing, but in person is just like your eardrum shake. You feel like the glass in the place is like shaking, and there's this booming voice, just like and not in a bad way, but it's like a dad that you can tell that loves you is speaking directly to your soul. And you're just like, gosh, I thought I was a good guy. And now I just like have seen how crappy of a father, of a husband. And so it really got me thinking. And that didn't like kick the door open to my heart to open to Christ, but it at least cracked. Yeah. You know, like it cracked me. Yeah. So he actually held up his rosary that he prays, and it's like this big. It's got bullets for the Our Fathers, and like it's got or bullet casings, I should say, for the Our Fathers, like ox bone. And I told my mom when we were leaving, it was just before Christmas. I was like, hey, I'd take one of those rosaries, you know, for a Christmas present. My mom was like shocked, like what? Like you want a okay, like done, yeah. So she gets me the rosary. You start trying to pray the rosary. I don't know how very well, but I'm just like carrying it everywhere. I'm wearing it and stuff like that. So that was December. And then January, so it's December 2015. January 2016. So I didn't mention this, but through all of the stress at work, I was actually on FMLA because I was just like burned out. Like I was like in a bad place. Physical responses to the stress in my life, basically, like just terrible digestion stuff and just all sorts of just health issues that they are like, oh, we can't tell you what's wrong. We know you have symptoms, but we don't know why. Like we don't know why.
Yeah.
So I'm away from work at the time, and my parents invite me to this men's conference. So I go to this men's conference. Father Larry Richards was the first speaker, and before the conference started, he just got up there and he talked about how you're here to meet Christ, and whatever else is going on outside of your life, just let that go. Just be in the moment here with Christ. If you have anxiety, depression, anything, just kind of like be here.
Yeah.
And in an instant, it wasn't like this slow thing throughout the day. In an instant, something inside of me was like, God did something. Like he took away anxiety, depression, all of my symptoms I was having, like terrible, were just gone. And I was just like, what happened? And whatever this, I don't know if what this guy's saying is true or anything, but I know that the God of the universe just let me know that he loves me, and he just fixed a ton of stuff that was wrong.
Man.
So, man, the whole day was just amazing. It was Father Larry Richards, Jesse Romero. By the way, I love Jesse. He's so like,
this was the first Boise men's conference.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, and it was so funny because we get done with the men's conference and we end with adoration, and that was just awesome. One of the things that Jesse said is he said something like, if these people came in here right now, if you say amen that you believe something, it's just like if people came in here right now and held a gun to you to say, do you believe in Jesus Christ? If you said amen, then you were staking your life to the words or actions that you just said. So remember that is when you say amen, that's like, I'm ready to go down to the depths for what this means. And that stuck with me too, because it's like, man, when you say amen, that's stronger than saying I agree or whatever. Because I can say I agree with someone, but then they go do something crazy and I'm like, I don't agree with that guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I heard a priest talk about transubstantiation, that you are in fact saying, yes, I believe in the body, blood, soul, and divinity.
Yeah.
So if you say it loosely, haphazardly, I guess you don't get, a lot of people, I didn't get it, the gravity of what you are agreeing to in these different circumstances. Or even when you're part of a prayer and the priest is saying, if you agree, say amen.
Yeah.
And we always look around and everyone's saying amen.
Yeah. And we're sheep, so we all say it.
We all say it, but I don't know that we understand the gravity of what we're saying.
Well, it took me 30-something years to understand the gravity of saying amen, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could answer all the questions, but I had no idea on why.
Yeah, yeah.
Someone said, do you believe that that's Jesus Christ? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Okay, but...
Do you believe it?
Do you believe?
I do.
I just told
believe
you. I believe I know the answer to your question. I know the right answer, and if it's not, just give me a little nod, and
exactly.
I'm going to be a good little Catholic and just answer the question the way it's supposed to, rather than know the why.
Sure.
And that's so bad. Like, that's like all the reverts I've heard. We all have the same.
We all have the same story.
Yeah.
Catechism. We were kind of present at times, not present at others. We would go outside the catechism hall and just chase each other, and that's what I remember, chasing friends and
right, yeah, getting some donuts.
Yeah, getting some donuts, watching the family grab too many donuts. There was always that one family that would grab like 10 donuts.
Oh, I see.
To feed 3 people.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, you were saying.
So, where was I? Just like blacked out there in a good way. Sorry, guys.
Oh man, what were you talking about? Oh, you had gone to
Father
Jesse Romero had mentioned amen and the power of that.
Yeah, so at the end of the men's conference, I'm like, call my brother, because My younger brother Joe is the only other person I know that has had sort of a spiritual experience. Like,
Sure.
not like that, but similar.
Yeah.
So I'm calling him and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna quit my job. Because I was like ready. I was ready to quit my job. I was gonna do whatever I had to do to chase this truth or whatever it was that had changed me, that had done something so unexplainable to me. And he's like, whoa, calm down, calm down. Like, he's like telling me to calm down, which is a good, like, as Catholics, we're supposed to be at peace and we're supposed to be able to discern.
Sure.
And so to have all this happen and then to just be ready to make some like radical change, which radical change is necessary, but it should also be something that you discern and you make sure that that's what you're called to
calculated,
do.
take your time, and that's where the patience comes into play, which is very difficult.
Exactly, because and also like if we think of demonic, the highest level that they're able to interact with us is at the emotional level, and the emotion is like definitely what I had. God touched me on an emotional level with that healing.
Yeah,
that I was like so grateful and had all these like feelings of gratitude towards. But like I said, they were feelings. So that was the prime time for God to work in me, but it also opened me up to being able to have this experience to be manipulated by the demonic.
Yeah.
And thankfully I had my brother to kind of like talk me through it and be like, hey, we really need to think about this, discern it, don't act right away, figure out like what you're called to do because you have to support your family, which is like all these things that were like super good. So he talked me out of quitting that next day, which was a good thing because then I start discerning like, am I going to stay at Micron? What would I do if I left?
Sure.
And so I've been open for discernment. Someone's like, oh, you got to find a ministry to be involved with. And I was like, oh, my parents are big into the pro-life stuff, so maybe that's what I'm called. So I'm listening to every podcast I can about pro-life. And it was actually I was listening to Lighthouse Media, and it was supposed to be a pro-life talk. Can't believe I'm about to say this on YouTube, by the way.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to a pro-life talk, and it's not a pro-life talk. It was like mislabeled.
Oh wow.
And what the actual talk was, it was this Mormon guy who had converted and became a Catholic priest.
Okay.
I believe, and he just shared this conversion story of like going from Mormonism to Catholicism. And where I worked with a lot of Mormons, and a lot of close friends of mine that I had relationships over the years were Mormon.
Sure.
So I felt like that was God saying, you have done everything for yourself while you've worked there. It's time for you to work for me. Do you know what I'm saying? So I had this like moment of, oh, I'm supposed to stay and talk to my friends and just be the Catholic that I'm supposed to be.
Sure.
Where I'm at. Which was tough because that's not what I wanted. I wanted God to say, sell your house and move to Africa and go be a savior somewhere. You know, like that's because I think that's something that is tempting for people that have had a religious experience, is to abandon responsibility almost, to do something, to like go outside your house and slay the dragon instead of slaying the dragon that is in your own home.
That's
you know
good.
What I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Because I've had urges to want to go do things outside the house, but then you like look at your own house, you're like, man, there's a lot of work here to be done. You know, there's
I understand
a lot
what
of
you're
work
saying.
here.
Yeah, even feeling called, that could be an escape or turn into an escape, and you just have the same patterns you had before, but now you're saying I'm following Christ.
Yeah. And and I still worry about that. Like I always check myself on that, right? So, so stayed where I worked, and just tried to witness to my friends. I don't know if any of it took or anything, but I had some great conversations. I mean, when you stop talking about like, oh, what's the weather like, or who won the game, and you're talking to people about like, hey, what spiritual experience have you? Even if they're not Catholic, they're maybe Mormon or Protestant or something. You actually get to know people.
Yeah.
More than just this crap that maybe you go have a few beers with them, and if you're lucky, they'll get a little tipsy and tell you more than what they intended to. That, which is terrible.
Otherwise,
to say.
It's all superficial.
Yeah, but if you talk about like things that mean something, like G.K. Chesterton, I'm going to butcher this quote for you Chesterton fanatics out there, I guarantee you, but he said something about, like, we've been taught not to talk about religion and politics.
Mm-hmm.
Well, religion and politics are the only things that matter. Like, those are the things that, like, drive our lives. And if you can't talk about those things, then you're not talking to the person that you think you are. You are talking to this social construct of, you're allowed to know this section of my life.
I understand.
You're not allowed to know the deep things that I care about.
And I think that that dialogue, that type of dialogue, has been shut down because of the emotions you were talking about earlier. If we can't honestly argue calmly, debate calmly, then we say, just forget it. I'm not even going to talk, because that's a classic line. We go to this household during Thanksgiving, no religion, no politics.
Yeah.
That's the only way we keep the peace. But if you want to get to know someone, and my dad was an expert at this, he would talk to anyone about these different matters, and he would always stay calm. So if the other person got frustrated, he would just stay calm. So in a very interesting way, he was witnessing to me, and I didn't even know it, because he could stay calm and talk about his opinion and bring up facts to back up his opinion. I just wish we would get back to that. That's why I love the modern debates, any debate, whether it's religious or political. If people are actually debating, that makes me happy. I don't care that the other side, the opposing side to me, has good points. That's good. That's going to help me, frame a better argument.
Exactly. So. And something that just came to mind when you were explaining all that is, like, if you walk into a church in, like, Europe, you immediately see the battle. You see heaven and hell and the fight for souls. And that's something that I know as a man being raised in the Catholic Church, I had no clue that there's this war going on for souls, or war going on for the family, or anything like that, that would potentially call me deeper. And there's a war going on in religion and politics that's a very spiritually centered war. And if we don't pray and we don't do these things, like, how are you supposed to fight this battle that is mostly spiritual without praying? I mean, as we sit here today, I'll bet you I pray 15, 20 minutes a day. Does that get it done? Probably not. Like, and then I have to look at myself in the mirror and be like, I'm not pulling my weight,
Well, and then the first thing you say is, well, I didn't have enough time, or you tell yourself that. And then if you look at the analytics on your iPhone and it says you spent 2 hours and 45 minutes on your phone. That's why we're doing Exodus 90. So. Exactly. Anyway, you were saying.
So just got through how wide stay at Micron. So I stayed there for a while. Still felt like I always felt the itch to leave. Like, God was eventually calling me out. Because one thing that our culture does nowadays is, where you work silences what you're able to talk about publicly. I never experienced it as far as disciplinary where I worked, but it was I felt like I couldn't talk about specific topics because of having fear that I would lose my job. Which in America, you would think we'd be the last country that you would have that concern, right? Because we have the First Amendment, supposedly, which we do from the government standpoint. But the way these companies circumvent, or the way I'm not going to say companies, the way the devil circumvents free speech, is by pressuring Christians and people of any faith to shut up. And
well, if I use certain hashtags on this video, it could be. I mean,
for sure.
Who knows?
So and I'm fairly outspoken person, whether it's good or bad. I know I've been I've rushed to judgment on some things that I should have waited on, and other things I sat on that I probably should have said something soon. So it's back to that discerning piece. But through my whole faith journey, though, it's been such a blessing to see what I used to say were coincidences. But after talking to my parents, like, my mom's really big into signal grace. they're not coincidences, folks. If you go throughout your day and you're like, oh, that's nice that I ran into this person or that person or whatever, that's not a coincidence. It wasn't just a random act. It's this. God is like the ultimate chess master, and he's suggesting that we move to these places. And when these moments of like, Father Larry was suggested to say yes to the men's conference.
Mhm.
My parents invited me to go, and I was suggested to go. So there's this moment of like both Father Larry and I agreeing to be at this place at the same time
Yeah.
for something, for the chess master's plan to like, he just executed something amazing. So right, so we got to be open to these different signal graces of you're called here for a purpose. Look for that purpose. And something that I'm excited about Exodus, and I need to get back to,
Yeah.
is at the end of the day in Exodus, we're supposed to do like a nightly examine, right?
Yeah.
And what I noticed was when I was working at Micron, I was doing the nightly examine a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and something that helped recognize is I would see times that I was meant to interact with people late, right? I would be in bed and I'd be like, man, this interaction happened and I didn't say this, or
Got it.
I didn't acknowledge them, or why were they there, right? So you start like seeing how your day went. Well, once you do that so many times, you're not seeing it in your examine. You're becoming present like when these people are interacting in your life. So I'll give you an example. We were at, or I was, this person at work would always bring in Starbucks coffee. And I choose not to drink Starbucks coffee. No, that's just personal
How
opinion
dare.
because of what their company stands for.
Sure.
Just
Yeah.
flat out.
Your freedom to choose.
Some things,
Sure.
and I don't brag on them. I just choose not to partake.
Sure.
Right. So this one would bring it in every day. Not every day, like every Friday. It was like an every Friday thing. And I'd be like, well, I don't drink Starbucks. And she knew this, but then she would ask every time. And then one day she said something to the effect of like, if you just don't partake with people that disagree with you, you're gonna have a hard time buying from anywhere, right? And I was just like, ooh, that's a good response. Like, what's my response to that? And I'm thinking, and this guy that I had developed a relationship with, that he was also friends with this woman in like kind of a spiritual, like we all kind of talked religion a little bit, and his response to her was, do you think it's easy being a Christian? And you know what, that interaction through the times of just having all these spiritual conversations, that answer was so amazing, and it was so simple, and then she didn't ever needle me again
Sure.
about
Yeah.
not drinking Starbucks, because we all can't be perfect, but we have to draw a line in the sand somewhere.
Sure.
Like if I become aware of something, I have to follow that conviction, and if I know that the conviction is good, because some of us are convicted about things that we shouldn't be convicted about.
Yeah.
That we're holding on to things that maybe we shouldn't be holding on to. But if it's something that is like, if you've discerned as good and holy.
Yeah. Well, then that ties to the examination of conscience each night.
Exactly.
Just helping form the conscience, and hopefully your discernment will improve, and you'll be focusing more on what's good and holy and righteous. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then just, it's been so beautiful because my wife and I, we went on a retreat together, and I just learned about typology, right?
Mm-hmm.
How like the old is hidden and what's hidden in the old is revealed in the new,
yes.
and then the new unlocks the old, right? Basically, like that's how we view the Old Testament and New Testament.
Yeah.
And I'm telling my wife all these things, and she goes, I went through RCIA. I know this. And I'm just like, what? And you didn't tell me? Like, she's like, you were Catholic. I thought you knew that. Like, I'm going to speak to the spouses of people that maybe they've converted and their other spouse was already Catholic. Don't assume that the revert knows what the church teaches.
So true.
Like that's something that I know, that I actually worked with a guy who was a faithful Catholic, and we were, I would be talking to my Mormon friends, and this is prior to reversion. And I would say, "Oh, that's just what he thinks. This is what the church teaches," and it was not. Like, it was not what the church. Like, I thought it was.
Yeah.
But it was not. So it's Cradle Catholics. I'm sorry, Cradle Catholic out there. I am one. We're like the worst to ask questions to, especially if we haven't actually dove in to what the church actually teaches, and we're relying on information that was given to us.
Yes.
In our past,
could not agree more.
Like, I've had to undo. Like, I felt like when I came back to Catholicism, I used to call it a reversion.
Yeah.
But I would say I was like, I'm a convert
Mm-hmm.
because I was truly Protestant. Because honestly, if you're a Catholic and you don't believe the whole faith, you're a Protestant. Like, because you're protesting
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I believe what's dogmatically declared here, but not over here. Yeah.
Because, like, the very last thing for us was birth control.
Sure.
Like, that was like, I could not wrap my head around this being like a evil act, intrinsically evil act. So no matter past, present, or future, that was an intrinsically evil act. I'm just like, I'm not buying it. And it's not that intellectually it didn't make sense.
Correct.
It was because I didn't want it.
You didn't want it to make sense.
Yeah.
And
that's
a big part of a lot of the dogmas. I don't want it to make sense.
Yeah.
Or even if you see the connection between the Old Testament and the New Testament, whoa, that does paint a comprehensive picture.
Yeah.
But I just don't see it.
Yeah.
And I remember someone saying that, just brilliant man. I believe he's Baptist. He was asked about a number of dogmas, Catholic dogmas, and he just said, I can't accept that. I can't accept that in good conscience.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just an interesting take. Maybe he can't. But there are a lot of people that will say that, and I've talked about this in other videos that I've done. If you have confirmation bias permeating, you just say, there's no way that that can happen or that makes sense. And I don't accept it,
Yeah.
Even if somewhere in there the wheels are turning and you're being led in a certain direction, but you say, no, it just doesn't make sense.
No.
What about that guy over there that committed a sin?
Right?
Yeah. That kind of thing. You start to get nervous. That's what it was. I did a video on vincible ignorance. And do you know about vincible ignorance? And invincible ignorance?
I believe invincible ignorance is very, like, I don't know the difference between the two, but I understand what invincible ignorance is. And I think invincible ignorance is extremely hard to actually, to truly be there.
Correct. I agree with you.
To truly be ignorant of something being evil, rather than having maybe it's your conscience is just like dead. And I always say that my parents did a really good job of giving me a conscience, and I had to use substances to numb it, to shut it off, to then do some other,
I would say the exact same thing happened with me.
Yeah. So at that point in time, is it invincible ignorance, or am I doing something in order to make me feel like it would be invincible ignorance? Like
we're so clever, right?
Yeah,
we're so clever. I know how to shut down my conscience.
Yeah.
I feel good about that. And then I'm going to start mocking people that actually have a developed conscience.
Yes.
And act like, oh no, I'm pretty intelligent over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my point with vincible ignorance was just, there's someone that says that doesn't make any sense, and I refuse to study it further.
Oh wow, yeah.
And it's ultimately what a lot of people are saying, and I know I've done this, it's scary to take an extra step towards that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to say that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Yeah, there's no way that makes sense.
You just reminded me of something. Like, I talked to a friend at work when I had first reverted, and he said, how can you not, no, I said, because he told me he eliminated Catholicism as far as for being true. And I said, how did you do that?
Sure.
Because that was like the process I was on.
Yeah.
And he said, well, if you believe that babies go to hell that aren't baptized, how could you really believe that? And I was like, go to hell? Like, what do you like? I never heard this
Yeah,
before.
yeah,
So I did some research and everything. I was
sure.
like, they don't. There's not a dogma or anything teaching that babies go to hell. There is limbo, which I think is a valid argument. Like that, I wish limbo would be something that we could like bring it out and talk about because it's such like a section of church teaching that is often brought up by people that um, don't understand what limbo is.
Sure.
Um, but he told me like if you believe that infants go to hell, then
I'm out.
I'm out.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I was thinking, well, I do too. And so I had a couple options.
Yeah.
I could just believe him and maybe leave the church, or I could stay in the church and refuse to go further down that path.
Sure.
First thing I did, I get in my car and I'm in a panic because I'm Googling. I'm just looking up like what Catholic teaching says babies that aren't baptized go to hell. Like, and I'm not talking about like limbo being like a consistent state of happiness, not in the presence of God.
Oh,
but
yeah.
just but he was talking about hell. Like you're in hell, absent of God. Like
Wow.
like you know what I'm saying?
Definitively.
Definitively.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and when I came back and I told him, I was like, that's not actual Catholic teaching. I could see it in him. He was shocked and mad. Not mad at me, but wherever he got that information from.
Yeah.
Because he's an authentic, what I have seen from him is an authentic, like someone who sees things down no matter how difficult the intellect, no matter how difficult it is.
A good trait.
Yes,
so
yes.
for him, he had all these objections. One of them fell off.
Yeah.
Like,
and
now
maybe
it's on to the next objection, probably.
yeah.
I mean, I went through that even reverting.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
I don't even know the answer to this. That is a great question.
Yeah.
Ashley, for example, my wife would bring up a question. I don't know what the heck that is. I'm going to have to figure that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So that just reminded me.
Yeah. So I don't know that wasn't there a part of the story involving your parents going traveling?
Oh man,
isn't that part of the story?
Yeah.
If you want to,
no, I can.
If you want to end it, we can.
No, it's okay. I have a class in 45 minutes, so
okay.
So we do got about this is another little connection, I guess. My parents big into praying to saints, like asking saints for intercession for their kids. Prayers from a righteous man avail much, right? So who's more righteous than a saint, right? Like you want as many saints in heaven praying for you. And when I say praying for you, interceding, like if Jesus has a favorite brother or God has a favorite son that has his ear, wouldn't you want him to like be in God's ear to be like, hey, Josh needs a lot more grace than this. Please.
Yeah.
And it's not that God doesn't know it, but it's that a good father likes to be like asked, like he wants your intentions to be known.
Sure.
And so my parents make their intentions known to God fairly loudly with a lot of different saints. And one of them happened to be Saint Andre Bessette. He's this little known Canadian saint. He's actually, this is a fun fact, he's in the Order of the Holy Cross, which is the order at Notre Dame.
Yep.
The only canonized saint is this brother Andre Bessette, and he was illiterate. He couldn't read. I'm not sure if he couldn't read, but he couldn't write. I don't know. He had difficulties in education.
Okay.
Which is interesting because Order of the Holy Cross being Notre Dame, you'd think that it would be like
good point. Yeah.
some intellectual, but you have this little humble man. He's actually has the most miracles attributed him while living out of any person living.
No way.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yes,
wow.
For sure. If you go up to St. Joseph's Oratory in Montreal, Canada, there's all these crutches and everything, and this is while he was alive. It wasn't like that he's interceding after he's that people would like come up to him and they'd say, hey, I hurt my leg and I need your prayers. And he'd pray for him and they'd just have him rack the ceiling. They'd leave their crutch there, man. Like that's just like.
So they leave all the crutches.
So yeah, there's all these like,
wheelchairs and.
I don't know about wheelchairs, but there is one story. This woman was in a wheelchair and people would wait in line for like hours to ask this guy to pray for him.
Yeah.
And so this woman comes in and she'd been waiting and, he says, okay, I'll pray for you. And then that's all she got. and she was like yelling at him, being like, I waited in line. And the next thing she knew, she was standing. so that's the type of like things that were going on around this brother Andre, and something that always in his intercessions there was a physical healing, but it was a spiritual. So there was a reversion of faith, or there was some conversion of heart that accompanied a physical healing.
Got it.
Right. So my parents, they go to this weekly Bible study. They're supposed to visit my brother in like a month or two. My mom got the flu, so she stayed home from the Bible study. My dad went. She watches this EWTN show on Brother Andre Bassett.
Okay.
It's in Montreal. My brother lived in Ottawa, so it's like maybe like an hour or two train ride, something like that. So like they're like, well, we have to go there. Like my mom was like, I'm not sure why, but we have to go. Like we're supposed to go there. So my parents go to Montreal before they go to Ottawa. It doesn't really matter the order. So they go to the oratory, which is oratory is like bigger than a basilica. So it's a huge place. And this brother Andre had it built there was a bunch of small donations. It wasn't like a big donor came in and built. It was just a ton of little donations, which is like pretty crazy. So my parents are going through this oratory, and specifically they were making pilgrimage to Brother Andre's tomb. So they go down. At the time it was Brother Andre. I don't think he was a saint yet. So he was a blessed Brother Andre. So they went down into the tomb, and they have his encased heart in there. And my parents were talking, and then my mom went up to the heart to ask for intercession to convert me and my brothers back to faith. She said that she touched the heart, like the encased part, and immediately streaming tears. When I say streaming tears, I don't mean like she's not crying. There's not like muscle movement, and she's not frowning. It's just like someone turned on the waterworks and just streaming out. And she's looking at my dad like, what is going, like, I'm embarrassed because it looks just like, she's like, I'm not emotionally tied to this crying. It's just waterworks. Yeah. And she's like trying to stop it from crying, or the tear ducts from turning, can't do anything about it. Like, so that happens. And my mom was like, whatever, like, I don't know what that was. A few years later, now this is probably like 4 years before my conversion. So a couple years later, they're talking to a deacon, or they're on some sort of tour again, and this deacon's talking about how there's some saints that talk about a gift of tears. Yeah. And which is exactly what she was saying, because some people think a gift of tears is like that you cry easy or a drop of a hat. That's not what the gift of tears is. Gift of tears is just like exactly what happened to my mom. It's just crying with no wow. Like, you're not crying because you're sad or happy. It's just waterworks on. Yeah. So what this deacon says, he said, often this gift of tears can be associated with confirmation that God has interceded for your prayers, or someone has interceded for you and God has
answered the prayer, the intention.
Prayer. Yeah. And so the crazy part is, Father Larry, my mom found out, travels to the St. Joseph's Oratory to get oil, because he has a devotion to St. Joseph, because he's like a father, right? So it's Father Larry that said the prayer, and he makes a pilgrimage to St. Joseph's Oratory to grab the oil. Yeah. And that's where and this is like years before. So long story short, people, if you have kids falling away from faith, I mean, pound the saints with prayers, because you never know. Like I said, it's a signal grace. It's like people agreeing to do what God asks them to do. Yes. And getting those people to interact. And I think that's the way grace works. I mean,
and I think he shows us naturally, organically, ask this saint for their intercession. Yes. I mean, that's what started to happen to me. Oh. Even being raised Catholic, and then hearing about the intercession of the saints and cloud of witnesses and just Hebrews 11 in general. I thought about it, and then over time, just it would organically happen. Yeah. I mean,
for sure.
St. Augustine right here. I mean, that tells the whole story right there for so many reverts and converts.
Exactly.
What have I done Anyway, we could go on for another
Heck
2 hours. So we'll stop there. Thank you,
Yeah,
man. That was
good.
awesome.
Yeah.
Subscribe to this channel. I'm going to try to do at least one per week. I have no idea if that's going to work out, but I'm going to try. And if you go to my website, eddietrask.com, if you know any revert or convert that would like to talk, share their testimony, I invite you to do it there. Until next time, take care and God bless.
Bye.